So, Rona Munro wrote one of my favourite classic Who serials, the last one, Survival. A brutal little 3-episode story, which is, in the simplest of terms, a coming-of-age tale, but it's coming at it from a glass-half-empty perspective, and given I'm a pessimist myself, it should be plainly obvious why I think it's a masterpiece. Survival's got Ace coming back home, finding everything's changed, and having the perspective that it's not so much she's the one that's grown up, so much as it's parts of her childhood that have died. And this is brilliantly set alongside a dying civilization of cheetah people on a planet where a bunch of young adults that Ace used to be friends with are trying to escape before the planet burns and everyone trapped on it dies. I honestly think Survival is the perfect send-off for Classic Who. While I do wish the old show hadn't ended when it did, because it was only just starting to find its feet again when it was taken off the air, almost everything about Survival just feels so right to me. The fact it's the final serial just adds to this sense of decay evoked throughout this gorgeous script, and the important thing here, and the reason I'm jabbering about it, is I reckon that Survival probably had a ton of rewrites done on it as it started to become apparent that this was in fact going to be the final serial. This feeling of finality is almost woven throughout every inch of it. Rona Munro provided all the correct elements for it, and that foundation was built upon to create one of Classic Who's bleakest entries and the perfect ending in my eyes. Her second story, almost 30 years later, Eaters of Light, reminded me of Survival quite a lot. It has the exact same framework, similar themes, and in theory should work because it's full of similar elements, but the context of it is totally different, and I can't help but allow that to grate on me. It's very important to note that Eaters of Light is episode 10 in series 10. It's not an ending in any way, so the themes don't work nearly as well in this context. The fact that it's the last one is very important to my view of Survival, and also the foundation that Munro's provided in Eaters of Light hasn't been built on, like I'm downright certain it was in Survival, and the resulting episode is basically Survival, but with most of the things that I found so interesting about Survival taken out, so while my now calling it a cut-price version of Survival sounds a lot more negative than I actually want to be about Eaters of Light, because I didn't think it was that bad, and it has got some interesting stuff in there, but yeah, a cut-price version of Survival does feel pretty accurate. Okay, listen to this here. Okay, we got Bill trapped in this cave with these young Roman soldiers under siege by a creature that absorbs all the light in a person's body, while the Doctor is trapped with a bunch of young Scottish warriors, one of whom is a girl, and the Doctor is really condescending to her about that for seemingly no reason at all, and it felt totally out of character to me. And it only really appears to have been done for the sake of clumsily hammering the themes in there, which, as said, don't work nearly as well in this context. Eaters of Light is about a bunch of, essentially, kids surviving in a cold, cruel world that they're unprepared for. Just like Survival was, except here there's no real relation between the soldiers and Bill's situations, so it's nowhere near as emotionally resonant as Survival. I know I said back in the pilot that I was starting to get Ace vibes from Bill, but that was just surface details and dialogue flourishes. Bill's story throughout season 10 hasn't been a coming-of-age one like Ace's was, so the story isn't close and personal. See, you got the similar framework in here, but the context of it doesn't scan, so you can't exactly blame me for thinking, isn't this basically just that, but not as good? Okay, let me just allow my preoccupation with Survival to drop for a moment. As a story in its own right, I can sort of see what Munro was going for. We open with some kids hearing the music in the hill and seeing some carved out stones before we delve into the origin of the music and the stones in the main body of the episode. Eaters of Light is essentially trying to dramatise a murky historical record of long past events. You know, characters from an old folktale, or people stitched into a tapestry, or depicted on the side of an ancient urn or something. And it's there to serve to remind us that these Roman soldiers and Scottish farmers, these fragments of history that we remember today, were at some point just people. Very young people with their own dreams and desires just like us. I really enjoyed that scene where they realised that if you translate the languages, real historical figures just end up sounding like kids. That's a great idea, that is. It's trying to humanise the past, and if this foundation had been built upon, I'd probably be singing this story's praises. Alright, in the capacity of being the Doctor and modern companions get wrapped up in the trappings of a realisation of ancient history with an added monster, the sort of thing done in stuff like The Time Meddler and other 60s Doctor Who serials, in that respect, Eaters of Light is at the very least entertaining, but given I recognised elements of survival in there but stripped of their context, and the fact that the Doctor, Nardole and Bill aren't really woven into the story in a personal way like Ace was with the Cheetah People, yeah, my opinion is mostly down to me and my history with Munro's work here. Maybe I expected too much, and the context I went into Eaters of Light with made it harder for me to judge it with fresh eyes. The fact it's only 41 minutes didn't really help. We didn't spend nearly enough time with either the soldiers or the farmers to really get a feel for either of their situations. All we really had was just the Doctor being a bit of a prick to that girl for 15 minutes, and a rather cringy scene of Bill and the Roman soldiers expurgating the fact that the ancient Romans were a lot less sexually repressed than modern civilizations. I mean, so far as the episode's purpose essentially being to bring these ancient historical figures to life and show them for what they were, the stuff that's actually in here doesn't really do a whole lot to achieve that. A massive chunk of the latter half of it is mostly just techno-babbling or explanation for the music in The Hill, and how the Doctor's gonna get everyone out of this one, which barely made a lick of sense in itself, and a 5-minute scene with Missy at the end setting up our finale. Yeah, this one's totally a case of 45-minute syndrome, 41 in this case. The episode's only really allowed itself a 20-minute stretch or so in the middle to do its thing. And it's an interesting thing, don't get me wrong, but to me, Eaters of Light was at least 5 or 6 drafts and maybe a second part away from actually working. What you've got here is the bare bones of survival, but with a ton of stuff carved out of it and replaced with, well, nothing. Well, maybe that's unfair of me. It hasn't replaced it with nothing, so to speak, because it's also relegated Nardole to annoying one-liner spouting comedy side character again after he'd done some growing this season, which I consider to be less than nothing. Wait a second, this is confusing me. So, something minus something equals nothing, and nothing minus nothing is... Wait a second, 2 minuses make a plus, don't they? Wait, so is Eaters of Light double plus nothing? Is that what I'm saying here? I don't know, fuck it, maths is hard. I suppose I just found it a bit of a shame that Rona Munro's return to the series has just been treated as a bit of a throwaway affair. The pre-finale episodes, either 10 or 11, never have any hype to them. They're too far along in the series' lifespan to be used in the season marketing. Most people are sat around waiting for the finale by this stage in the game. No one ever really expects that much from them. When they're actually good, like Blink was, it usually takes people by surprise. Eaters of Light seems to have just been thrown in there as an afterthought for people like me who are fans of survival, which I'm grateful for. Don't get me wrong, but Eaters of Light needed a lot more care and a lot more attention to get it working, as the idea's nowhere near as simple as lots of New Who, and this really wasn't a situation where you could just ask Rona Munro to deliver a script in the spirit of survival and just basically film the results in a 35-minute block surrounded by finale baiting. Oh yeah, another reason I was disappointed was when I heard the name, I expected the Light Eaters to look like the Cookie Monster and go, nom 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 nom, nommy light, nom 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 nom. No, Light Monster, stop eating all the light. Nom 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 nom. Yeah, you know how fanboys who get on your case about your criticisms of New Who end up claiming that it's the viewer that's the problem and not the show? Yeah, they may actually have a point in my case with this one. Anyway, now it's time for... Prediction Corner, the section of He Who Moans where I try and predict what will happen in future episodes. Okay, so because the rumours of him being the 13th Doctor was so strong, I predict that Chris Marshall is actually going to be in Series 11 in some capacity. There's going to be an episode where the 13th Doctor runs into an alternate timeline version of the Doctor, where the show was just as boring as it's probably going to be anyway. We see Chris Marshall Doctor running around a spaceship with a human girl from a 21st century city on Earth, waving the magic buzzy thing at the aliens until they stop, and saying something wacky like, "Oh my god, that Dalek is like totes a rufflecopter, hashtag fidget spinner." Yeah, flipping the genders is going to kill Doctor Who. Fucking seriously.